Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning and good evening. So yeah, welcome to this weekly meet. So we've been meeting weekly, and mostly we did the weekly meetup in Tamil. So many people requested, ask us to do it in English. So from today, we are, changing. We are talking in English so that many people who are not able to understand Tamil can also can join. So today topic is very interesting. We just wanted to dive deep into the world of cloud and area. So cloud has been taken the market by anything. Now everybody everywhere is cloud. Like cloud is like it's like basics. You need to learn it in order to learn everything because that's where the entire infrastructure is there. So I will just start with one basic, start with one basic analytics which I found very interesting, and then I'll hand it over to Rajesh. This entire topic will be shared by Rajesh, who is our like monthly is giving one talk in our Tamil Movie Weekly Meetup. And let me just give you a quick show on what's happening on the cloud. So I'm just sharing a screen. So just if you just look at the market in cloud, right? So it's predicted to grow like anything till 2028. We are having uh, almost 150,000 AWS DevOps engineer might be required in in the market only in India. So this is just by India. This research done in only in India. So this is just a tip of iceberg. Only AWS DevOps this is. But if you calculate the Azure and then GCP and then everything, so this number will be double, triple, or more than that. So that is the main thing. So this is the main agenda we'll be discussing, and then more insights and what's happening in the cloud area. So with that, yeah, I'll hand over to Rajesh. Yeah, Rajesh, you please take over.
Sure. Thanks, G, for your quick introduction. Let me share my screen. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. Thank you. So before moving on, let me give a quick introduction about myself. First of all, a very good evening to you and everyone. And good morning, people who have joined from some other location. Thanks for your active participation. Thanks for joining this session. Today we are going to discuss about like very interesting topic, as Arumugam said. We are going to see something little on out of technical. Like we are going to focus on more on what is the aspects on cloud. Everywhere it is cloud. So now we see like a lot of migration is getting happen, like from legacy system to cloud, right? So we are going to majorly focus on that aspects. What is the current trends in the market, in IT industry, jobs, opportunities, what we need to focus on, what we need to be sticked into, like identifying the technical skills. Before moving on, let me give a short introduction about myself. I'm Rajesh. I'm working as a senior technical lead in EPAM systems. I do have total of 13 years of IT industry. I worked with Bloat. I started my career as a manual tester and then quickly jumped into big data, where I was, working as a Hadoop developer and an administrator, played a couple of roles. So in fact, now I'm more focused on cloud. So we are focused on AWS stack. So I'm currently with senior cloud architect in my current company, and we are also doing some research on AI as well. So currently like a couple of POCs are going on for, as artificial intelligence and ML is getting boomed by the industry. So apart from my full-time work, I do also provide consultation for any kind of cloud support or big data engineering. Also provide couple of trainings offline and online, and I do conduct workshops, seminars, guest lectures as well for colleges and schools during weekends. So that was my complete journey about me so far. All right. So yeah. So with my quick introduction, let's move on to today's topic, today's agenda. As I said, cloud computing job opportunities and demand in IT market 2024. As you all know, we are not only like small companies, even like mid companies or tier 3 companies, like large companies to small companies, right? Anywhere it can be a kind of um, Infosys or CTS or even small companies, any banking, right? Corporates, right? So they are also primarily focused on migrating their legacy system to cloud, or complete re-engineering projects are also getting happen nowadays. So the ask is very simple. They want to simply adopt the cloud strategy. So that's what it is now. It is getting happen. It's not a very straightforward or very simple thing that it's very easy to simply move the system from on-prem system to cloud. We have like various factors which is involved. It's not simply a kind of button click and all of a sudden the data gets stored from here to there, like that, from X to Y, right? So there are like a lot of research needs to be done. What needs to be, like, a couple of factors before we move on. Like there are like a lot of things, costing, a kind of security, there are like a lot of things, right? So that is what we are going to discuss today. And as per today's trend, how this cloud computing is actually shaping the jobs, being it like, Asian market like India, Singapore, Malaysia, or even in Gulf, right? Gulf market is different, quite different from Asia. And even in fact, US and UK markets are predominantly getting ups and downs. Then and there we see some recession and layoffs are being done. But this cloud specific jobs are not seeing that much level of, layoffs. The reason why, obviously, when it comes to customers, there are like a couple of things that we want to focus, right? One is the productivity, business continuity, which is nothing but at any point of time that there should not be downtime, right? Always it should be uptime. We should not get the system down at all. So the productivity is very important. That is two factors. And of course, security plays a very, very vital, factor on designing like which one we want to go, either on premises or cloud. So when it comes to cloud, as you see in this slide number one, we have like various clouds, right? As we see, as we are very, very popular in IT market is these three, starting from AWS, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, Azure. And by the way, if you have any doubts, feel free to ask me. And in fact, we will have 5 to 10 minutes a Q&A session at the end. So please post me any questions if you have it between, or we can even, have a kind of session at the end of this meeting. All right. So being it like AWS, GCP, or Azure. So now the one question that comes into our pops up into our mind, or even the customers, or even the business, right? Which cloud service provider I want to choose? So that is a simple question. If somebody is very familiar, right, they will always say that AWS is very fantastic and please go on, do the business with AWS. Of course, yes, but it's not somewhere I would say like almost yes. Why? Because let me go to the next slide. So if you see this slide, right, so this slide is, talking about the present current, quarter, the Q1 2024, right? So the 2024 Q1 strategy says that, right, AWS and Azure is almost equivalent when it comes to market share. So there were like business worth of $76 billion of worth is going on in cloud strategy. So if you take this, right, in addition to AWS, Azure, and GCP, there were several service providers are there like Alibaba Cloud, Salesforce, IBM. They have their own infrastructure for the cloud. Oracle, they call this OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, and Tencent Cloud. It's not that much popular, but it is very specific to some use cases. That depends on their organization and their, relevant business for their state. But when you see the first three, right, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, which almost close to 70% of the market is being captured by these three players: AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. While being this here, AWS was one of the oldest player, like right from 2006 they were in the market. So it was close to 18 years before they started their strategy to adopt this cloud service provider, by, having all these services like EC2, EMR, AWS Lambda, and couple of things. At present, if you see in AWS, right, there are like 200 plus AWS services are there. So we want to know also whether those respective features, which is really helpful or not for our use case. That is one thing. It is not like something or somewhere someone is using actually AWS and we should always go and, pick only the AWS as the right cloud service provider. It's not like that. When you have a work related to Windows based, or for example, you work with Microsoft 365, or you work with Active Directory, or you work with Microsoft Office related applications, right? Or even you work with C Sharp or .NET platforms, right? So obviously, customers are primarily focused on choosing the vendor as a Azure, not going with either AWS or GCP. So that's the right strategy that we want to make sure, right? Whether we want to go to either AWS or Azure or GCP. But of course, almost similar to each other, all three. But when it comes to customer share, and also like when it comes to futures and services based, right, I would recommend going to AWS and Azure. Okay, it is not depends on, it is not my personal choice. It is all depends on the way that how the business is actually getting, the customers. Okay, so this is what I'm just going to explain. It is not something like I'm personally saying, it's not like that. All right, fine. So AWS 31%, Azure 25% of the market share, which is being captured. Say 3 to 4 years before, the trend was quite different. Azure was only like close to like 11 to 13% of the market they were capturing, while AWS was close to more than 50 to 60% of the market were captured by AWS. So this trend is almost getting equal to both AWS and Azure nowadays. So the competition between AWS and Azure is getting very fast. So it is now the right time to decide which cloud service that we want to go. So there are like couple of factors where I can highlight few of them, right? As you know, cloud service provider is obviously having couple of options like adopting either it can be a public cloud or private cloud, or even you go with multi-cloud or hybrid cloud as well. Even you can own the infrastructure completely, or you can even partially own the infrastructure and do your business, right? So these strategies are very important on deciding like which cloud service that you want to choose. When you say you, the business, so business people are the one who are actually deciding like which service provider that we want to stick to it. Either it can be one among these three players like AWS, Azure, or GCP. First, always keep in mind market demand. So when it comes to market demand, as you see in this picture, the share value, right? AWS beats everyone. So almost like AWS, Azure is almost pretty equal, right? But when it comes to kind of, I would say like, there are like a lot of things that we want to focus, whether like in terms of costing. Like AWS, for example, in real time, if you want to purchase two CPUs, two virtual CPUs with 8 GB of RAM, one instance, okay, two CPUs, one 8 GB of RAM, one machine, which cost around $3.9 per hour. Okay, per hour. Whereas if you go to Azure, it costs around $4. Whereas it goes to GCP, it never goes to more than four. It just only cost around $2.5 per hour. So the trend is here, since the costing is very less comparing to AWS and Azure, GCP is very less and cheaper, right? But it's not something that it is very cheaper and we obviously go. The reason is GCP offers very less services comparing to these two, AWS and Azure. As I said, right, AWS has 200 plus services are there. Let me also show you, like when I say I talk about these services, I talk about these things like transcribe, EMR, chatbots, Athena, Glue, EC2, S3, and all these steps. So these are individual services. Am I audible, guys?
Yeah, you are audible.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the confirmation. Yeah. So if you see here, right, in AWS Management Console, there are like a couple of options like they have segregated based on the stream of work that they want to design, being it like business application, or even if it is a database, or if it is something comes to AI related, AWS focus more and more having, the services they want to. Say if you see here, right, so these services like transcribe, translate, Kendra, SageMaker, even chatbots, right? They are focused on AI related applications, ML related applications. So AWS more and more focused nowadays on AI engineering, right? Whereas Azure and GCP is not up to the market when it comes to AI integration in this cloud strategy, because AWS being like it's the old player, right? As we know, right, from 2006, right? They were the old player. So they know like whether they want to integrate with some other platform, or they want to integrate with IoT or any database or any application, they are more familiar. So they are the ones who actually start with the strategy of integrating any other third party application, being it like AI or IoT or etc. And then these models were again getting leveraged by other service providers like Azure or GCP. So I talk about 200 plus services are available, right? In this range, if you see here, all these streams are available. In fact, Azure also having all these services equivalent to this. So let me also have a slide where you can focus on, like these kind of services, which is having a difference between Azure, AWS, and GCP. I'll come to this point later. So while talking this, GCP offers only limited services. It's not like so more than 50 to 60 services also. It's not like that. So we have only like 50 to 60 services are there in GCP comparing to AWS and Azure. So while always we focus on automating jobs and the trend goes on like this, right? So that is the reason, main reason why companies are giving more focused on AWS as option number one, and then option number two to Azure. So GCP in my stay, I would give third rating, which means it's not something like it's not, we should not always go to GCP. Yes, of course, when it wants to in a kind of cost effective in terms of pricing, or if you want to do some kind of data analytics very with a good performance, right? In fact, as you know, Google has a big query which has a compute engine which gives you, large data warehouse system where the queries will get scanned very, in a microseconds. So those systems were obviously there in Google's infrastructure, where it has a capability to provide the data analytics very very faster comparing to AWS or Azure. So let's say, while talking about this, right, I would also give you some kind of insights, like, when you want to create an instance, when I talk about instance, EC2 instance, for example, in AWS, which is nothing but creating an operating system, Linux operating system. We call that as creating an EC2 instance, which takes 2 minutes of time to create. Whereas if you take in Azure, it takes 4 to 5 minutes of time. Whereas in GCP, it took only like 1.5 minutes to complete creating the instance. So when it comes to compute engine, always the number always number one goes to GCP rather than going with AWS and Azure. But when the customer is always focused on having more number of application, let's say like I want to complete, migrate my database which is there present in on premises server to cloud, I obviously prefer Azure or AWS, not going to GCP. Let's say you have a database Oracle, or you have a database MySQL, right? So if you want to migrate the complete database that you want to migrate to a cloud, obviously you focus on AWS because they have some system called service, obviously called database migration service, DMS, we call that out. Or we have one specific service called RDS, relational database service, where like any kind of database they can integrate with cloud provider. Simply it's just a kind of plugin, that's it. So being it like migrating your servers from on-prem server to cloud, or if you have any applications that you want to host in a network and that you want to move out to cloud, yes, of course you can do. Or you want to simply offload your data which is stored in a, file system, you want to simply move that to a cloud, you can still go ahead and do it. Yes, of course we can do. So there are like being it like couple of options, right? So being it like data or database or applications or servers, the right strategy of choosing the right vendor is a big important thing. So we want to always keep in mind, coming to that, what are we going to do? One, as I said, costing, right? Costing is very important factor. And number two, number of features and services. So if you see here, point number 5, features and services, AWS provides the maximum number of services, as I said, 200 plus services. Of course, Azure also, as in the same region of, having 200 plus services. GCP is very less comparing to other two. Right. Number 3, learning resources. When it comes to documentation, training support, customer support from the, 24 bar support, right, from the providers, and of course, like you have like wide range of, certifications, right? There are, I will come to that. There is a specific slide which talks about the certifications are there from all three platforms, but you have wide range of certifications in AWS and Azure, whereas in GCP it is very less. All right. So training support, resources like documentation, customer communication, like, customer support and engagement, like, when there is an issue in cloud, upfront we need to also get a complete solution without any downtime, right? So that is one primary important thing. And third thing is ecosystem support. When I say ecosystem support, they want to always look into, like, when it comes to, like, for example, as I said, right, AI is now getting integrated into AWS. So when something is getting added, the technology always keeps increasing, and it becomes very challenge and bottleneck to everybody, right? Since AI is now the current generation, right, it's very hype in the market. AWS has already started integrating those AI applications into AWS, whereas in Azure, it is getting integrated. As of now, there is no AI applications are getting integrated slowly. 1 to 3 services are now getting integrated very slowly. So soon it will hit the market by next 2 to 3 months, very soon in Azure. Whereas in GCP, there were no roadmap for that, since The innovation and invention of the Gemini was came, like OpenAI, ChatGPT platforms, like generative AI content. They were more focused on those platforms, not completely into GCP. They are not focused primarily into cloud market. So AWS and Azure are competing each other in terms of having these points. As I said, right, demand in the market, ecosystem support, learning resources in terms of documentation and training support, certification, etc. Futures and services, of course, like there are like 200 plus services also there. And one important thing that I would like to highlight, other than these points, one important infrastructure that we want to always look into is the number of data centers that we are actually having, right? When it comes to AWS, there are more than 120 data centers are available across the world, with more than 30 plus regions are available, right? So they call them as simple, segregate that into AZs, availability zones, that spans across with different regions like Asia, US Pacific, North America, Europe, Central Europe, like that. So with different regions, right? So they have close to more than 120 plus data centers are currently active in AWS. Whereas in Azure, more than AWS, Azure has data centers in US and moreover in UK. So they are more focused on US and UK market. So they have more data centers comparing to AWS, right? So customers are also thinking about like whether how many data centers are actually having by these cloud provider. Let's say you have an UK customer. Let's say you have like it's a banking client. Okay, they always keep in mind when it comes to banking client the confidentiality of the data, whether it is compliance, whether the security breaches, whether it will happen or not. Those kind of data security aspects are also keen to look into. So when a customer is actually deciding, right, so whether they want to up AWS or Azure, more important point that they want to decide look into is whether they have like whether they have good support with data center. So because scalability is one important factor that I want to talk to. When it comes to scalability, automatically, right, when we want to have the resources up, you want to definitely increase your resources up and your business needs to run. So auto scalability future is very very important when it comes to cloud, because that's the one important factor that we always look into, right? When it comes to cloud, the infrastructure maintenance and all, like very very less. That is the one reason, one of the reason, okay, why we are actually moving to cloud. So you don't want to maintain your servers physically, you just want to pay as you go. So this cloud model, as you know, pay as you go, right? So whenever you try to use the system, use the cloud service for any service that you work into, when your business workflows are running, you only pay for the model, that's it. So that was the cloud strategy is behind all three. So pay as you go market is very very important factor for deciding the system whether we want to go to either on premises or cloud. So many customers are choosing this one important factor, the cloud strategy, right? That pay as you go model. And number two, auto scaling. As I said, right, whenever the demand rises, whenever the data is getting increased, right, or even the vice versa, your system needs to be very stable. Or when it comes to system, what I talk about, the number of infrastructure that you maintain as a cloud, right, that needs to automatically scale up and scale down. So that auto scaling facility needs to be always remain available for any cloud provider. Of course it is given by both AWS and Azure. The only thing that we want to choose is which which service provider gives the best out of it in terms of costing and in terms of availability and in terms of number of data centers that they do have. So one point I was clarifying, right, Azure has more data centers comparing to AWS in US and UK. So when it comes to customer who is actually looking for data that they want to work on US clients, so they primarily, right, they focus on going to Azure comparing to coming to AWS. Well, yes, AWS has largest number of customers on its base, but nowadays the trend is more focused on Azure as well. I'm not saying that Azure is beating AWS. I'm saying about like AWS and Azure is growing parallelly in equal to each other. That's what the trend is actually going on. Azure is slowly coming to the mark where AWS is getting the market now, right? So when you talk about 3 4 years before, the AWS was close to more than 50 to 60%, right? So the share is getting equally divided between AWS and Azure. So any doubts so far? Anything that you want to highlight or anything you want to ask, feel free to ask me. I'll pause for a minute.
Hi, this is Ramakrishnan.
Yes, Sivaramakrishnan. Yes.
Yeah, so I have one doubt. So
Hmm.
now I am working in Windows System Administrator for on-premises.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, I want to move the cloud platform.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought is I want to choose Azure Administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of role it is help to get the jobs in the cloud market. So Azure administrators, can you advise me?
Definitely, Sivaramakrishnan. So coming to that point, right? So when it comes to job opportunities, as you were pointing that you are into Windows, right? Windows-based applications, and you want to move to cloud-based administrator role. Yes, there are roles which are there in Azure as well. So we call them like, when it comes to opportunity-wise, I will tell you like, there are like couple of roles that we want to talk about. One is being the developers and the architects, solution architect, we call that out. And the third one is the DevOps engineers or sysops administrators, systems operations administrators, or support engineers I will call, or security engineers. Okay, so all these 6 roles are available based on the number of years of experience that the candidate is actually looking for. So whatever I will like, again I will reiterate, developers, certified developers we call out, maybe we can simply call that as cloud engineers, so they do the development activity and build and everything. Second, DevOps engineers, as Arumugam was highlighting, right? DevOps engineers was almost giving more and more attentive nowadays as the number of jobs are getting increased in Indian market as well as abroad. So DevOps engineers or sysops administrators. So when it comes to you, right, if you want to switch over to Windows based application to cloud, I would recommend you to go and hit it right with sysops administrator. There is a specific role called Azure sysops administrators, or even we call them as AWS sysops administrators. There is a difference between DevOps engineers and sysops administrators, because sysops administrators, they focus only on the infrastructure side, whether they want to maintain any active directories or any kind of LDAP related or any Outlook related configurations or any configuration related. It maintains the system related information perspective, whereas DevOps roles are more focused on building and deploying the applications to, or promoting their deployment to higher environment. They closely coordinate with the developers. They know what's the code is actually being developed. They want to see, DevOps is more engaged with 3 teams. One is the developer team and the SRE team, we call that as site reliability engineers. They are the production support team. And the third one is the DevOps engineers, right? So all these 3 players are, they combined effort in terms of, doing or developing these DevOps engineers. They focus primarily into. So their primary focus is to deploy their applications into higher environment. That's what the DevOps engineers will come to. When it comes to your question, right, I would suggest you to go and hit it right. SysOps administrators, that role will be very, very comfortable and suitable for you. And there are like addition to that, there are roles like solutions architect. When somebody is wanna play with architect role, right, they know about like what are all the services available in AWS, Azure and GCP. They want to do kind of recommendation to business. They opt with solutions architect. It can be a senior solutions architect, senior cloud solution architect, or even simply cloud solution architect, we call that out. And the next 2 thing is network engineers and then support engineers. Support engineers, either they can be L1 or L2 support. It's a kind of 24/7 rotational shift where like when any business is running their workflows, right, they want to always keep troubleshooting and monitoring, right? For that, there is a specific role called support engineers. Okay, is that answer your question,
So
Sivaram Krishnan?
yeah, I have another one query. So Azure
Hmm.
administrator uh, act as like a support engineer, Azure administrator.
No, it will be different. Support engineers, they more they are not more focused on administrating the infrastructure, right? They will have the queries, and tickets will be coming up from the production support team, and they want to address the the cluster, or they want to address the queries that the cluster is getting issues. Whereas the sysops administrators, they own the infrastructure. They have, let's say, if you have an Azure cluster created, right, with couple of like let's say like 200 nodes are there in a single cluster. What administrator's role is being played here is they primarily want to own the administrative activities, like in terms of providing permissions or security, or in terms of logging, or in terms of infrastructure maintenance and all these support kind of things. These will be tagged to sysops administrators, whereas support engineers, they never ever go to administrator role. Their primary ask is to only see whether the workflow is getting running or not. If there is any issue, they coordinate with the development team, either that is the certified developers, and they resolve it as early as possible. That's the role. Okay.
Yeah, got it. The sysops engineer is an administrator job, right?
Sysops administrators, not engineers. Sysops administrators it is.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. So compared with the AWS, Azure also equal sharing, right, in the market. So
Nowadays it is getting very close to AWS. Even though AWS tops number one, Azure is moreover going predominantly good comparing to AWS. They are very approaching very faster in this cloud space. They are not outbeaten AWS, but they are simply they are coming very faster, nearing to AWS. That's what this number is actually saying as to us. 31% to AWS and 25% to Azure.
okay. Mid-level companies or startups also choosing Azure nowadays?
While the answer is not something straightforward, we cannot say directly to Azure, because it depends on your application. It depends upon your infrastructure that you want to go. Let's say like you don't have couple of applications. Let's say you have only like 5 to 10 applications in your system currently in on-premises server, right? That itself is not generating a huge pricing, but simply they want to in terms of having the data very huge historical data, they do have it close to more than 20 years of data, but they want to store it in a cloud based system. Obviously the answer goes to AWS, because AWS having wide range of services, not only like S3, as we all know, it's a simple storage service which stored for data. We have like Glacier, which is also one more service which gives you more cost, which you cost effective. The pricing model is very very cheaper comparing to S3 and Azure. So it is up to the company to decide what business case that actually they are looking into, whether in terms of storage, whether it is high or not. On second thing, whether they have huge number of applications that they want to migrate or not, whether they have a huge database support or not, like that. So all these factors, right, that comes into picture, and then only we can straightforwardly we can calculate whether we want to go to AWS or Azure. Simply we cannot go like going to Azure. But as I said before, while starting itself, right, when we have a support or related to Windows based applications, right, moreover 99% of the corporates are more focused on Azure, because there are like native libraries are very very easy to user friendly and enterprise friendly to integrate the applications from, or even migrate their system from on prem to cloud. That's the reason why they are going to Azure. I cannot say that always Azure is the right choice. Even people who are actually doing Windows based application, they even move to AWS as well. There are some customers they did as well. Even when you take Netflix, right, Netflix are they are more focused on Windows based, but still they are migrating to AWS. They have not yet moved to Azure. So those kind of scenarios also comes on and off like that. Okay.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Hey
All
Rajesh,
right.
that's very specific. But if I am just looking for learning purpose, not currently, or maybe it helped me in the future. So in that case, which technology will be better?
AWS is more preferred, because they have the wide range of documentation in terms of getting the support done. The next side that I want to talk in terms of certifications, right? AWS provides a wide range of certification you can do simply with with some amount of learning capabilities. That when it comes to documentation, resources, training materials, comparing to Azure and GCP, AWS beats everyone. So AWS has its own capability of providing this documentation. I would recommend personally to go ahead with AWS comparing to Azure or GCP, because it's very
And
easy to learn, very easy to adopt this cloud model.
anything specific for AWS, because there are a lot of services in that, right?
In terms of certification or service, you say?
In the terms of learning, yeah, certification maybe.
Of course, CCP is one, primary certification, or many people are actually doing, like certified cloud practitioner, CCP, we call that out. It was a, very fundamental certification where many people are actually looking into. It's very, it costs around $150. Sometimes it is $295. When it comes to offers, we can even grab it with $150, provided if you have your companies providing any reimbursement models, we can still opt it out. But anybody who is actually looking for any primary certification, let's say the person X is not having any amount of cloud knowledge, they want to move to cloud very firstly, right? They want to always try to choose CCP as the first certification, and then like there are like a couple of certifications like certified developer, solutions architect, or certified engineer, or database engineer, like that. So I will cover that in next slide. But when it comes to answering your question, I would recommend two. One is certified cloud practitioner, and then certified developer. These two certifications are very straightforward, very easy to learn. Whereas one beautiful thing about this, right, it covers wide range of services. It talks about security, it talks about configuring, it talks about storage, it talks about networking. It has equal weightage with all the content. So like security, configuration, networking, storage, and everything, right? So when it comes to CCP and certified developer, right, when you try to learn all these, even for your own learning or being it like certification, you will be a master of AWS. So that like you will come to know at the end of your learning, okay, these many service number of services are actually available in AWS. These services are actually used for these number of applications or any resources, like that. So AWS perspective, I would recommend these two. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
perfect. So moving on to the next one. So this is actually, primary thing that everybody is actually, the main agenda of the meeting is something is this focused on, right? Why we need to move to cloud. So as I said, these are the top reasons. Like, there are hundreds of reasons where we can even go and see, like we can hit the system, but we can primarily focus on these five things. One is we want to ensure BCP as a business, as a customer, and as a vendor, right? Vendor B2B or B2C, any strategy that we have with the business, we should ensure BCP is up and 100%. Business continuity plan. So anytime my system needs to always keep running. So there should not be any kind of intervention should be there for my system or for the business. So ensuring BCP, that is a right strategy, that cloud market is actually giving more benefits comparing to on-premises service. Second, cost reduction. Of course, it is not something very straightforward. As I said, it was one of the example, right? Creating one instance with two CPUs with 8 GB of RAM with three different, right, having $3 and $4 and $1.5, right? So we want to work out like how many applications are there in my current existing model, how many instances that I want to work. Let's say like you have an application that doesn't ever need a 10 more than 10 instances. That is possible. There is some system called, I would like to call that some examples like Walmart, right? As you know, it's a largest retail, right? They have their own cluster created in AWS, not on Azure. They have close to 2000 clusters nodes, 2000 nodes of infrastructure in a single cluster. So day by day, the data is getting wide enough to increased. So that they have like close to more than petabytes of data generating daily. So their focus is to keep the cost very optimal. And second thing is, as I said, BCP is very important for them as they are doing the business. And third thing is scalability. As the chain of, when in a month or so, when the business is getting expanded in some other regions, right, not only US, anywhere across the globally, right, the data is getting simply getting increased. So they want to scalability, they want to maintain that scalability as point number one. Auto scalability future we should be very important. So they are keeping in mind all these futures, and then they are trying to leverage which cloud that I want to go to, either to AWS or Azure or GCP, like that. Okay, point number three, as I said, this talks about simply scalability, right? Scalability is very important when it comes to business. Number four, yes, customer experience. It needs to be in two situations. One is user friendly when it comes to being a team of engineering team, And then when it comes to business perspective, it needs to be enterprise friendly, right? They want to see the system very in a friendly way, that they want to talk to the system very lightly, right? When it comes to nowadays AI and machine learning, right, there are like a lot of systems I would like to call out: recognition, and then transcribe, translate. So they are like, speech learning algorithms where we can develop, so that they are fastly improving their customer based experiences. Even if you want to if I want to give a good example real time, right? Even Amazon is having one service called Lex. It's simply used to creating a chatbot, conversational chatbot, right? So they have their own infrastructure, they have their own model, LLM model created there. Simply we can go ahead and we can leverage that model, and we can start deploying our models, AI models, right? Machine learning models. So likewise, number 4, focused on better customer experience, and number 5, improved productivity, right? So all these 4 factors, right, number 1, 2, 3, 4, all at the end, we need to always ensure that the productivity is very very important. When it comes to business, always they are keep in mind, and the top notch of the service to be productivity. So if there is productivity is getting lesser, obviously we always focus on going to some other vendor comparing to your existing client. It is a matter of business strategy, when it choose the right infrastructure or right cloud service provider. Okay, keep in mind all these 5 critical points are very very important when it comes to why you want to decide to go to cloud comparing to your existing on-premises server. All right. Yes. Coming to the certification perspective, let me put it in the presentation mode. Right. So if you take all these 3, right? So while the left focused on AWS certifications, and at the top right, it focuses on GCP certifications, and at the bottom it talks about Azure certifications. So as I said before, right, the certifications are actually planned by every vendor in terms of 4. Okay, one is fundamental or foundational. Okay, that is the entry level certifications, we call that out. And then comes associate level, a kind of, we simply tag it like something like beginner, intermediate, expert, and advanced level, right? Likewise, certifications also are marked in these kind of categories. First, foremost, fundamental and foundational. Entry level people, like let's say a fresher is actually onboarded to a project, he doesn't have any AWS or Azure or GCP knowledge, but he's actually trying to learn. Okay, I would suggest them to go with foundational level of certification, where that CCP and all, right, that comes into here, right? Cloud practitioner, that is a foundational level certification anybody can take with some amount of learning, with good amount of documentation provided by AWS and other useful vendors as well. Like nowadays, a lot of YouTube channels and other resources are available in the internet, right? So we can go rightly and we can pick that, we can learn it, and we can get the certification done. So foundational, followed by associate, followed by professional. Okay, professional is somewhat something I would call that as expert level. Let's say like solution architect or senior solution architect. When somebody is going to design your system or design your architect of your entire project, right, he or she needs to be well versed of the complete cloud stack, being it like in terms of security or configuration or networking or storage or even AI. Nowadays AI knowledge is predominantly needed nowadays, because more customers are focused on AI related re-engineering, right? So solutions architect are one level higher, so that like people have good amount of vast experience. They have like close to more than 15 years of experience people, they focus more on solutions architect. And even DevOps engineers, they are the one who are going to maintain the production level system in the production environment. So they are also like, at the moment AWS focus on professional DevOps engineer. Then comes speciality, like there are a lot of things like they being it like database certified engineers, networking engineers, or even data analytics engineers, or even ML engineers also, even people can do. It's kind of quite certifications are available in AWS. While when it comes to, okay, I'll go like anti-clockwise. Okay, while going to this Microsoft related certifications, we have like similar to that, we have like associate, we have like professional, we have expert, and we have specialty. So these certificates are available in Microsoft Azure. They focus on developer, of course, administrator, Sivaramakrishnan was asking, right? So Azure Administrator was the right certification that you can focus on, and even one level higher, as like AWS, we have like Professional Solutions Architect, right? Here we have an Expert Solutions Architect certification, then followed by DevOps Engineer, and of course at the bottom right we have like AI fundamentals. This more focused on AI fundamentals, like being it like machine learning, LLM, generative AI, and such things. Azure IoT Developer, of course, integrating your cloud stack to IoT. They have this specialty developer, IoT developer certification. And then comes Power Platform Fundamental. They are more focused on, administrator related. I was talking about sysops administrator, right? So combination of sysops administrator and then networking, right? They have the capability, this Power Platform Fundamentals. So that was one specific certification that Microsoft Azure was designed. So people whoever want to go to that related to networking and then administrator background, they can focus on Power Platform Fundamentals. While going at the top right, it's nevertheless it is GCP. While as I said before, number of services are very less, right? As you say, comparing to either other two, AWS and Azure. So they are not more focused on certification perspective. They have only limited certification like this, like data engineer or cloud network engineer, cloud developer, cloud security engineer, and then followed by architects and a cloud related suite. G suite we call that. Okay, G suite, Google suite we call that out. Okay, G suite, cloud engineer, cloud developer, or data engineer as well. So only 7 certifications are currently there in GCP. Whereas if you say or see this AWS, right, close to more than 12 plus certifications are available under different segments. Comes to foundational, they have wide range of certification. Professional, yes, they have like lot of things. Associate, specialty. Whereas in Azure also they have like lot of things. Whereas when it comes to here GCP, number of certifications are very less comparing to AWS and Azure. So when somebody is actually, see, there are two things I would like to call out. One, a fresher is actually, who is actually going to thought of starting their professional career, or even an experienced guy who have like close to more than 5 to 10 years of experience, or maybe more than 10 years of experience, whether they have to go with AWS or Azure or GCP, it's the top notch question of the hour. So I would recommend, if a fresher who is actually going to start their cloud journey, I would call that out, as I said before, suggested, right? AWS is the right suggestion, I would like to call it, because of the wide range of documentation and certifications, are surplus amount of certifications are available in AWS. Whereas in Azure, they have it. But when it comes to point number two, documentation and number of resources, that is actually getting lacked. It is getting very less comparing to AWS. So that is the main reason, but I was actually focused more on AWS comparing to Azure. While number of services are actually equal, right, when it comes to AWS and Azure, in terms of documentation perspective, Azure, AWS beats Azure. Okay, that's what I was talking about. GCP, no doubt, services are very less. That's why the certification, number of certifications are also very less. But when it comes to computing, right, they are the number one because of the BigQuery, because of the Kubernetes engine. A lot of engines are there. When it comes to infrastructure side, right, Google outbeats both Azure and AWS. But when it comes to customer friendly, user friendly, and enterprise friendly, when it comes to pricing model, right, AWS and Azure moreover equal to each other. But when it comes to documentation and certification perspective, as we want to focus when a fresher is actually going to kickstart their journey. AWS number one, you can put number two as Azure and number three as GCP. Okay, so these are the number of certifications currently are there. Okay, these were taken like very recently, like close to more than half a month before. Okay, so these certification, they are actually increasing their certifications, guys. So when it comes to now, as you know, right, AI is getting integrated with either Azure or AWS. They are trying to add more number of certifications from AI perspective, like we call that as AI engineers, AI data engineers, like ML engineers, like that. So they are trying to increase the number of certification in both AWS and Azure as well. So the focus is now more into, see, earlier the trend was migrating their on-premise services to cloud, cloud-based services. Either it can be a public, private, or hybrid cloud. It depends upon the use case or the number of application or the data volume that we can call that out. Or If a customer is looking for the complete re-engineering, or they want to completely re-engineering their model to the big data stack, right, being it like Spark, with map reduce flavor, right, so they want to focus on big data engineering. Of course, cloud will be the right model. Like any customer, right, they will keep in mind cloud as the most important factor they want to go. So if the customers, point number one, they want to complete their migration from on-prem to cloud server, of course they can go. Either it can be a server based or applications or database or even data as well. Number two, they want to re-engineer their compute platform from cloud to, sorry, from on-prem to cloud, of course completely are doing. There are some customers, they want to only partially re-engineer their infrastructure. Of course that is also possible. They will keep their data, their on-prem services, and their compute, right, sorry, their compute engine runs from the cloud platform. Because of the wide range of infrastructure, they don't want to pay more attentive to infrastructure maintenance. They don't want to upgrade their system whenever any software is getting updated, right. Well, let's say like if they have any kind of maintenance related activities, right, we don't want anybody to keep looking into. Everything will get owned by the cloud community itself, right. So that is the major thing. In currently, many customers are migrating their systems to cloud from on-prem service. Okay, even some customers, right, maybe I can give some examples. Even like Coca-Cola, right, there was a largest retailer, right, in terms of beverage model. So they are moreover, right, they are keeping their data, only their data to cloud. They are putting it everything into Azure. Okay, so they are not into AWS or GCP. They are putting all their data into Azure, while their workflows are getting run in their own on-premises server. Okay, the only is the data is getting stored, the historical data on the incremental CDC data, right, they are only getting stored in the cloud platform. Whereas the other side of the engineering, the kind of workflows and batch jobs and streaming kind of activities, all are getting happen in their own on-premise server, because they have their own infrastructure ready to run the job. But when it comes to, they are thinking, their mind is to keep the data only to put it in the cloud server, right, because their strategy is to cut short their pricing when it comes to storage, not on the computing. See, there are two things: computing and then storage. When it comes to computing, yes, of course there is a model where you want to decide whether you need to go to on-prem or cloud, or in cloud whether you want to go to AWS or Azure or GCP. Likewise, there are like a lot of formulas are there upfront. You want to first plan plan your system whether you want to go to public cloud or private cloud or hybrid cloud. Then you want to put a design. When it comes to design, how many number of workflows that you want to run in your system, or how many number of applications that you want to onboard to your cloud, or what is your total volume of data that you are going to store, and what is the forecast of data maybe down the lane a year or 2 years later. What is your forecast of data is going to be stored in your systems, in your, either it can be a legacy system or cloud based system. You want to focus all these things. And then what is your business ETA, the SLA that we call them, right, service level agreement. So what frequent that you want to run your workflows, either it can be daily or weekly or monthly or bi-weekly, like that. So based on all these critical factors, only we can decide which vendor that we want to go. Okay, the community support, of course I want to talk about this community support. There are like a lot of AWS engineers, they even they have their own wide range of community in AWS. They help each other when it comes to new services launching, or any kind of troubleshooting, or even to bug identifying a bug, or when it comes to support related activity. AWS owns a larger wide community comparing to Azure and GCP. That is the more and more important factor. Many customers are more focused on AWS, because when it comes to community and technical support, right, that's the reason why many corporates are actually looking into. Nothing, nevertheless, other than that, right? Yes, of course, pricing is one important factor any customer is actually looking into, right? It depends on number of services, as I said, right? Again, application and etc. Pricing, number one. Performance, how much good performance that you're actually getting out of your, in terms of running your application in your any of your cloud stack. Number three, community. If you have a wide range of community support, technical support, 24 bar support, that gives you more value add on when you rightly choose the best cloud service provider. And then comes to certification, resources, learning materials, and etc. Of course, AWS beats everyone. Not only Azure and GCP, even they beat like IBM, they beat Oracle, they beat Alibaba. Of course, there are like a lot of cloud providers are there, right? So these are some of the points that I would like to talk about, and I would like to also show you like a couple of things here. So this is something like where you can see like there are like, if you want to see, each and every cloud provider have their own native services. Let's say here we call that as EC2 instance, right? So there they will call it out like they will have virtual machines in terms of the first Azure, and the second option is AWS, and the third one is a Google compute. Maybe let me zoom it. So if you see here, right, you can even see here. So if you see here, when it comes to identity IAM, right? If it comes to Azure, they have their own Active Directory, Azure Active Directory. Whereas in AWS, we call that out IAM, Identity Access Management. All the roles level setting, policy settings, or creating user groups, on mapping all the users to the specific groups. All these things will be taken care by IAM. Whereas in Azure, they have their own Active Directory. They have that service. We can go there. Whereas in GCP, we call that as simply Cloud Identity Access Management. Or when it comes to storage, right? Yes, we call that as in AWS S3, whereas in Azure we call that simply like blob storage. And when it comes to GCP, we call that as cloud storage. Or when it comes to database, we call that as RDS, Relational Database Service in Amazon, whereas in Azure, simply they call it as ARD, Azure Relational Database. In Cloud GCP, we call that simply as Cloud SQL. So likewise, right, you have like a lot of things. Let's say like you have to have the serverless computing engine. In AWS, we call that as Lambda, right? Here, we call that as Azure Functions, whereas in GCP, we call that as Google Cloud Function. And of course, when it comes to auto scaling future, right, we call that as auto scaling in EC2, sorry, in AWS perspective, whereas in Azure, we call that as Azure Functions, whereas in GCP, we call that as simply like autoscaler. So likewise, right, every service is almost 99% is same and similar to each other. The only difference is they have their own name and standards. That's it. So if we say or talk about S3, it is going to store all the files as an objects. Same and similar to that, Azure also does the same thing, right? The only thing that the difference is they have the call it as Azure Blob Storage. They are going to see store the same kind of thing that AWS is going to do, and of course GCP is going to do. The one other difference is the pricing model. S3 costs different relatively to different with regions. Okay, in North Virginia it priced with $0.003 per hour, whereas in Azure it costs around $0.005. Likewise, different region to region it costs a lot. Okay, so region to region pricing model also differ. That also we want to keep in mind whether we want to go to either Azure or AWS or GCP. Okay, we want to choose which region we want to go. Either it can be an Asian region, or Europe, or Asia Pacific, or North America or South America, or even Australia also. So nowadays there was a data center which got expanded in Australian region as well. So we want to decide which region that we are going into, and we want to go store the data into, because region to region pricing will get different. Not only S3, even any service that you take, even if you take Lambda, region to region it differs. So all these resources, right? Maybe I can also share you the pricing models for each and every service at the end of the session. I will ping in the chat box also. Okay, so that you can also take a look on that. So these were some of the services I would like to call upon. Right. So this is what I'm going to, I would like to have these, all these explanations coming to what is the current demand in the cloud infrastructure job opportunities. There are like, not only India, guys, even abroad, right? Even abroad, even in Gulf market, Gulf is slowly picking up the cloud market nowadays, not up to that extent that what we had adopted in Asia or US market. Of course it is getting increased nowadays. I see like there are like a lot of good customers are adopting cloud, but due to various compliance issues, various security issues, right, standards they want to maintain, because Gulf is not something very easy to adopt any model that they want. There are like a lot of challenges will be there. So Gulf market is seeing very slow in terms of adopting global cloud marketing. When it comes to US and UK, I see a lot of rise in terms of adopting these cloud service providers. Number one US, number two UK, and then comes Asia, and then followed by other markets like Gulf market and other Australian markets like that. Okay, there are like lot of roles, lot of opportunities are there. Like as I said, right, cloud engineers, senior cloud engineer, or solutions architect, senior solutions architect, or AWS DevOps engineer, or Azure SysOps administrators, or Azure certified administrators, or Azure AI engineer. Likewise, right, there are like lot of options and opportunities are nowadays booming up because any customer, they are more and majorly focused on getting their applications migrated to cloud. I'm not talking about focused on AWS or Azure or GCP. The current business demand is more focused on adopting any cloud model, being it like anyone, one among these three. Okay. So when it comes to opportunities wise, I see a potential rise. Okay, in terms of having these opportunities across globally, not only Asian market, across globally, I see like lot of opportunities are getting boom. But if you also think in the lines of having some knowledge on AI as well, it is a value add on. Okay, the trend was 5 years before, it was completely on big data engineering, right? We call that as data software engineering. Nowadays, cloud engineering, right? And we can even combine in unified cloud data engineering, we call that out. The trend nowadays, it's going on the next level of trend is like they are the advanced level artificial intelligence ML related application. So nowadays cloud is also more focused on integrating IoT applications as well as AI ML applications into their own cloud buckets. Okay, so if you have some good knowledge on AI or machine learning or anything related to AI stuffs, right, maybe a kind of data structure or algorithm, right, or even generative AI, that is also is good value add on. Even when it comes to AI related models, I would recommend going to AWS comparing to Azure or GCP, because as I shown, right, in AWS management console, close to more than 12 plus services are available. Okay, in nowadays, that is specifically designed for AI market. Okay, whereas in Azure and GCP, it's not like that. There were no services upfront, but it is in pipeline. Close to more than 1 to 2 months, they will quickly spin up, and we can see some kind of good services in Azure and GCP as well. I'm not sure GCP will not come upfront, but of course Azure will comes as equivalent to AWS. Why? Because the only reason is they want to compete with AWS. They want to keep in mind they are always a competitor is AWS. They want to always compete against each other. They want to get the customers, as many number of customers as AWS is got. That's the main focus. So whatever AWS does, Azure also will be doing it. The only thing is the kind of they will have some kind of slowdown. Okay, comparing to AWS, because AWS, as you know, they were the old player, right? They were like they are in the market from 2006. So it was close to more than 18 and 19 years. They know what is the challenges, what are all the trends in the market, how easy to integrate with any third party system like IoT, AI and everything. So that is the why, that's the reason why AWS is outbeating every other cloud providers in the currently. Okay, any doubts that you want to highlight, any questions, feel free to ask me. Anything related to job opportunities or anything related to certification, anything not specific to services or certification, any questions that you have, please feel free to ask me. It's open to you guys.
Is Hi,
Yeah.
hello Rajesh. This is Hemant. Is there
Hi.
what is like? I want to know about something like DevSecOps engineers. Will say, what exactly like DevSecOps engineers will do, and how it will be there in the Azure cloud domain. Uh, uh,
Hmm.
in Azure cloud domain, how the SecOps engineer will work. I mean, how is that? Is related to any encryption, or they want to know any languages, scripting languages for SecOps engineer? How will be their role?
Good question, Hemant. So when it comes to DevSecOps, right? So earlier it was only DevOps. The terminology was only DevOps. Nowadays the trend was actually increasing one level higher, having this DevSecOps, Developer Security Operational Engineers. That's what we call that out, DevSecOps engineers. So when it comes to this, right, any engineer who is actually looking for this particular role, they want to also ensure having a good amount of knowledge on security. security in terms of networking and security. Okay, combination of networking, security, and then development operation. When it say development operation, we call it out deployment model, like promoting the deployments to from one environment to other environment, something like github, kubernetes, docker, all those stuffs, jenkins, right, bitbucket, all those stuffs that comes into devops bucket. So when it comes to network and security, see, obviously when it comes to security, right, there are like a lot of security tools are available. So let's say like your data is not outsourced or out broken to any other third party applications or any other traffic other than your VPC or your networking zone, right? You want to ensure that you are highly securing your data and securing your application. Okay, whatever the services it may be, it may be a Lambda, or it may be S3, or it may be a RDS, or whatever. Okay, you want to ensure that if there are any security related, let's say if the data is getting secured, okay, or otherwise if the data is not bound to secured level in terms of adopting this cloud, you want to ensure that you want to penetrate couple of security related testing. Okay, you want to penetrate couple of security related testing to ensure that data is not getting outsourced to some other third party applications, I'm saying. So this DevSecOps engineer, he need to have good amount of knowledge from networking background. That is point number one. That kind of configurations and everything related to networking. Okay, so primarily Linux operating system is one important thing that you want to know. Okay, that is number one when it comes to networking background. Number two, security related, like like lot of standards, right? HIPAA act, GDPR act, and lot of complaints related acts are there. So any engineer, you want to know and understand what is the security related standards are now being followed across globally. Okay, let's say UK market, they are very strict on having the GDPR. So they want to comply only with the GDPR regulations and compliance related thing. They should not go out of this compliant with GDPR. So any engineer, they want to know completely on and off with having knowing this security related steps, security related testing efforts, and data needs to not go beyond their cloud provider. So all these stuffs are very much needed having this role called DevSecOps engineers. It's not only networking and security, Hemant. It's also like they want to also know deployment perspective also. So I could say deployment, they should know networking, Linux background, and third one is the security related operations. As I was talking about different complaints related and testing related activities, that is also important thing. And I would like to call out, right, if anybody who is having or well versed in one programming language, it can be a Python, it can be Golang. Okay, I would suggest these two programming languages are very very important, or very suggested when it comes to cloud and when it comes to AI, right? These two programming languages are must. So one is the Linux for operating system or for the networking background. Number two, programming language Python or Golang. And number three, any database service, either it can be a MySQL or Oracle or any Postgres or any NoSQL database as well. Okay, number four, any cloud service provider. So if you have all these four knowledge, right, you can definitely get well versed in a cloud migration strategy. Okay, does that answer your question, Heman?
Yes, Ji. Thank you.
Yeah, Rajesh. Hi, this is Hamid. I'm having total overall 8 years of experience, and compared to the data quality, I'm having like 6. Because thanks for giving the
Hello, hello, am I audible, guys? Hello.
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah, I can hear you.
I cannot able to hear Hamid. Hamid, I think you are speaking on mute. We can't able to hear you, Hamid.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we can go at someone. We'll take the question from Hamid later. Yeah.
Rajesh, this is Raj here.
Hi, Raj. Yeah.
Right. So actually, I have a question. So I'm having 12 plus years experience. Okay. So do we need to learn all these three cloud technologies? Because why I'm asking, I'm already working in AWS project. Okay, so my client is they have one more requirement in Azure, so they are asking to learn Azure also. So do we need to go
Hmm.
for multi-cloud technology here?
Definitely no, Raj. Because the reason why, as I said, right. So when it comes to services perspective, as I was also showing you, right, difference between Azure, AWS, and GCP.
Mm-hmm.
Moreover, the services perspective almost similar to each other. The only difference is their pricing model will get differ, and the naming standard and some of the inbuilt capabilities. But some customers, as you said, right, they are pretty much they want to always focus on their particular cloud strategy. Because any customer, see, if you are working in AWS, they simply want to switch over to Azure, right? They will never ever think about like whatever whatsoever the knowledge that you have in AWS. They want to
Mm-hmm.
simply start your knowledge right from the beginning, completely focused on Azure. Maybe yes, as I said, the kind of work that you did in AWS is going to be there in Azure as well. Yes, definitely there is no doubt at all. But any customer, they always want to have any learning start from the beginning. But when it comes to you, right, not customer, it will be very easy for you to learn and understand, because as you have already there in the AWS side, right? So it is very easy for you to learn and equip very very fastly what Azure actually does, because you already know what AWS model is running. So obviously you can just
Yes.
similarly apply the model in Azure. The learning time will be very lesser for you, because you already know what is there happening in AWS market. But when it comes to customer, they always prefer engineers to learn start from the beginning, because they want to focus on certification. They want to well versed on end to end services, and how actually it works and everything. You say 100% knowledge on AWS, and I was very easy to work on Azure. They will know, they will never ever come to and say that but you still go and go ahead and learn Azure, and then you come to project like that. It happens in
So,
business, right? Obviously, any
yes.
customer, not only like small or big, any customer.
So how about the job market? Actually, say, as an example, I need to apply the job. So
Hmm.
maybe the outside company is looking for the multi-cloud for maybe 12 plus years experience guys.
Not really, Raj. So nowadays, people in the sense customers are focused only on one particular cloud. So I would say out of 100 customers, right? Not in terms of
Mhm.
market share as I shown, right?
Mhm.
60, 50 to 55 customers are focused on AWS because of
Okay.
only one thing. The one thing is nothing but AI. Because
Mhm.
nowadays customers are trying to adopt and re-engineer their existing models to AI based applications, right? So they
Mhm.
want to simply they want to simply adopt AI engineering into their cloud, and they want to investigate what is there currently in the AI zone. So when it comes
Okay.
to this, right, obviously there comes to mind with AWS only, and then comes only Azure, and then only comes to GCP. Customers are more focused on customer friendly, and then comes to pricing, as I said rightly, right? And
Mhm.
the kind of interface that we are actually working, right, that is also very important. As you know, as you might know, AWS is having a good UI, right, comparing to other two
Mhm.
providers. So that is
Yes.
also one of the primary factor on deciding the cloud service provider from the customer perspective.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Good. Thank you, Raj. Any questions? Hamid, are you there?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Rajesh.
Hi,
Yeah,
Hamid.
that's what
We lost you.
my intention is for the data
Yep.
quality.
Hmm.
What are the service that I need to for the look into the AWS, and if it is possible, so that whatever the services which you had shown, like
Hmm.
GSAP and the AWS, if you share that at least one screenshot of that, so that it will be easy for everyone, not for me, for everyone. That would be great help actually.
Definitely. I will be
So that
sharing the
at
deck
least,
presentation
yeah,
and the comparison
yeah,
sheet, and also like couple of
yeah.
pricing comparison. Also, I have some resources. I will be sharing that as well. No worries at all.
That would be great. Thanks.
Sure, sure. Fine. Thank you, Amit. Any other questions, guys?
Hi, sir.
Hi, Rio. Good evening.
This is Yes, sir. Sir, I'm a
Hey,
fresher, sir. But how did
hmm,
how do I get the experience from a cloud, sir?
okay. Before moving on, you have any knowledge on any programming language,
Yes,
any
I have
database,
knowledge in the Python and the AWS, sir.
Python and AWS? So you already have
AWS.
knowledge on AWS?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, the answer is right away you have, right? So obviously, as I said, right, there are two categories, Rio. One is fresher level entry and then experience level entry. But I would suggest when people are having a fresher level entry, right, I would suggest them to go ahead and kick off this journey with AWS, because AWS, one more additional point I would like to call out, guys, this is for entire everybody, not only for Rio. AWS offers you free tier option with 12 months subscription. Okay, so I would like to show this, right? So this one, this was actually used for my training purpose and my personal options. This AWS console, actually the account, right, that we are going to create, it offers you 12 months of free subscription, so that within that 1 year you can play with anything, but provided there are some restrictions for each and every service. They have some limited restricted usage. Till that you can go ahead, play, you can explore everything you can do, whereas in Azure and GCP you don't have these options at all. So that is the reason why I was talking about, like, in terms of documentation, content, resources, ecosystem support and all those stuffs, right? Absolutely fantastic. When it comes to AWS, they do provide this option. They give 12 months of free tier option. You can simply go and you can simply, if you want to create a chatbot, right, simply you could go ahead and you hit this lex, you can just simply go ahead and create a chatbot with free of cost. You never ever go and pay anything at all. So it's very wise choosing the right cloud. As a fresher, Rio, I would like to suggest you go and start your journey with AWS. And even for other folks as well, you get this good amount of opportunity coming to AWS. The 12 months free tier option is very valuable when it comes to learning. Okay, is that fine, Rio?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Perfect. It's good that you have a good knowledge on Python. Keep learning that as well. Python is definitely needed when it comes to Glue, Lambda, creating ETL jobs, right? Definitely Python knowledge is definitely needed when it comes to these two services. It will be very helpful for you going down the lane when you want to explore a couple of services. Okay, keep in
Okay,
mind that.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Rio. Thank you.
Rajesh Kesan here.
Yes, Kesavan.
I have some knowledge in ML. If I want to start my career with ML ops, so which
Hmm.
cloud provider you would be recommended?
Obviously two options, one is AWS and one is Azure. Azure, actually they are actually integrating their ML ops, as I said, right, certification as well as services in right down the lane. Maybe 1 to 2 months they will upfront, they will establish that services to, they will release it to the public market. Whereas in AWS they have like lot of things. I would like to give one option here. I will go here. There is something called SageMaker. Okay, if my screen is visible, I would like to call out this. There is something called SageMaker. This SageMaker is very, very helpful when it comes to machine learning deployment models. So right away, if you have a free tier account AWS, you can go ahead and you can train, build, and deploy all your ML models in Amazon SageMaker. This one service will be very helpful for you, K7. Or else, if you want to particularly go to Azure, we still want to wait for at least 1 to 2 months. They have some their own services similar to SageMaker in Azure as well, but still we need to wait for some more months.
Okay, so compared to computing power, we have GCP's good performance, right? So why you recommended this AWS? So most of the data would be taken from the Google, and its computing power also very much higher to this AWS.
Yes, perfect. Good question, K7. So the thing is, right, it's not about only the computing. So it's all about, understanding your application integration as well. Let's say, what about you take some reconciliation, or what about like data validation or data quality, someone is asking, right? All these things, or if you want to run your workflows on a day-to-day basis, or if you want to, simply auto scale future needs to be very, very good, right? That's the reason why we go either with AWS or Azure. When it comes to GCP, that kind of scalable option or deployment options, or running these workflow orchestration models and all these stuffs are very much limited in GCP. though the computation is very much good comparing to these two, but it's not only computing, right? We need to always look into couple of factors as well. As a business model, it's not only data storage, we want to also look into scalability of your system. So when it comes to scalability, AWS or Azure will be the right choice comparing to GCP. Or when it comes to workflow orchestration, yes, we have like Airflow, we have like step functions, we have like Azure functions in Azure. All these things will be well recommended, and it's also very user friendly and also very cost effective when it comes to GCP. Or you simply want to do some kind of, as you said, ML related stuffs, or you want to do something exploring, for the sake of, understanding how the data is actually working, right? You simply go to GCP and go and, hit your system. But when it comes to business model, you want to choose all the right services, how you are actually looking into integration, and then only you want to rightly choose that model. So all
Okay,
these
okay, got
factors
it,
are
got it.
very
Thank you.
critical. Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kesava. Any other questions, guys? I will be sharing this link as well. I will also share one video. There is a video upfront available. Okay, we will also share whatsoever the content which is necessarily needed for the cloud job opportunities, the presentation deck, and also some of the resources we would like to share you. We will definitely share you also. Okay, after the call gets over.
Yeah, great, great. That would be great. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Kesava. All right, guys. So if everyone are good, so you can always feel free to reach me or Armugam or anybody from Tamil Bhumi community. We are always there to help you. We are there to educate like as many number of latest technologies that we are actually focusing into. So if you want to have any kind of suggestions, even if you want to provide any suggestions, feel free to give also, or any learning that you want to take from Tamil Bhumi community, please do, guys. Okay, because learning needs to be well distributed from one person to another person. That's the main intent that we are actually focusing on, having these Saturday weekly meetups. Definitely, I'm sure that at least some amount of knowledge I would have been given this Saturday evening. So maybe, yeah, if all good, we can wind off. Arumugam, are you there?
I guess he left the meeting.
Oh, all right, all right, no problem. So yeah, so we will also share the recording and also share all the related content to you people. Feel free to go through it. If you have any doubts, please feel free to reach me, guys. Okay, I will definitely help you.
Thanks,
So
Raj.
how can we contact you, sir? How can we contact you?
Okay, I'll put it chat window. Okay, you can take this, and there is so we will give you one YouTube channel link as well, in maybe in the WhatsApp group as well, so that you can even go through that as well. If you have any doubts or any to any AWS related or Azure related or AI related stuffs, right? You can go through it from there as well. Okay, so you can take this number. Is my number visible?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, you can take my number. Feel free to reach me if you have any doubts, guys. Okay.
And also in future, if there is any sessions to discuss about IoT.
We should be not down the lane, but definitely we are actually planning it. But definitely we will keep you posted, Siddharth. Not
Okay.
nearly, maybe after 1 or 2 months we will be having it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. All right, guys. Let me stop my sharing. Thanks a lot for joining. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Rajesh. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you
No
for
Thank you,
problem.
Rajesh.
Thank you.